Morning, guys, and welcome to a brand new live guest interview. Today, we've got Jon Hall all the way in sunny... Where?
Well, it's Macclesfield. It's not sunny, so I don't know if you've got the right place.
Surprising. Down here in Cardiff, the sun is shining. It's blue sky, but it is absolutely freezing. So
it's so cold. It's really cold today.
It's weird. Like the last week or so, it feels like it really changed temperature. It's gone from kind of being warmish to just freezing cold all the time.
I think at this time of year, I think the evenings very quickly draw in at this time of year. It drops about 10 degrees, and all of a sudden it feels like you've gone from the middle of summer to the middle of winter in about 3 weeks.
And what type of unit have you got then? Have you got like a typical unit like we've got where it's boiling in the summer and Arctic in the winter, or have you got a nice...
Yeah, a little bit. It's an old mill building. So Macclesfield's famous primarily for silk. So this once upon a time was a silk mill. So it's got very big, thick brick walls, so it holds the temperature relatively central, but it's really hard to warm up. So if it's like -5 outside, it's probably still 5 in here, but you can't really get it any warmer than that. If it's 40 outside, it's probably still 30 in here, but you can't really get it cooled down. It just gets stuck in that middle-ish temperature.
What we found definitely in the winter, though, in the gym, it's actually colder in the gym than it is outside. You actually go outside and you start warming up again, which is a bit strange.
I don't think we don't get that bad. We just can't get it warm. So if it's freezing cold outside, it's marginally warmer in here, but not actually warm. And it's generally fine for members, because once they get warmed up and start exercising, they're okay. But as a coach, you're stood relatively still, and we're the ones that feel it a bit more.
Cool. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about using systems and automations to free up time and energy. But before we kind of do dive into it, how did you yourself get started in the fitness industry?
So my entrance to the fitness industry is probably relatively unusual. I was a fat kid. I was never particularly good at sports. I was in the school rugby team, but primarily because there was only 14 other boys in my year that wanted to play rugby. I decided when I was 21 to pursue what had been a bit of a childhood dream of mine, to become a professional wrestler. I used to watch it on TV and sat on my dad's knee watching Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks and all that. And I got to 21 and thought, if I don't do this at some point relatively soon, I'll get to 30 or 40 years old and regret not trying it. But at that point, I was in no shape whatsoever, particularly to become essentially a professional athlete. So I decided to not pursue my degree in engineering that I was just finishing, and instead to start working in the fitness industry, in part to help me get in better shape, and in part because I felt it would work nicely alongside the wrestling. So that was in 2002. Amazingly, I've been in the fitness industry 20 years now, which blows my mind. And for several years, I'd worked that alongside the wrestling, but I've not wrestled now for 8 years or so, and just doing this for the last 10 years I've had the business down here for.
Nice. So when you say wrestling, are we talking WWE or are we talking actually proper wrestling?
Yeah, the non-proper one. Yeah, WWE, that's the one.
Nice, yeah, because I did see you were down in Cardiff the other week to watch, what was it called? Clash in the Castle. Was that what it was called?
Yeah, so I had 2 tryouts for WWE in 2005 and 2008, and a few of my friends and contemporaries went on to sign for them. So Drew McIntyre, who was wrestling for the world title at Clash of the Castle the other week, was a contemporary of mine. I don't necessarily we were friends. We didn't know each other all that well, but he was around the same time as I was around on the British scene. So to have seen him go on to what he's gone on to, I thought it'd be an opportunity to see what happened with what was going on in the show there. And I was supposed to be taking my 2 older sons, but they couldn't make it in the end, so I just took my little one in the end.
Okay. So if we look at then the kind of dream of becoming a wrestler didn't kind of flourish and progress, what made you then want to open a studio, or were you doing something else prior to the studio opening?
Yeah, so originally when I first started 20 years ago, I did a year as a fitness instructor, then 3 years as an in-club personal trainer, and then I ended up moving into being a fitness manager at Nothing Fitness first, then went back to the same fitness first. I've been a personal trainer as club manager. And then I spent 2 years as a regional manager for fitness agents who ran the PT brand for clubs like DW, JJB as was, LA Fitness, Some Fitness First, MeFit, FitSpace, etc. So I did that for a few years running the Northeast region for them. And I kind of came to the realization that management and that's something necessarily what I wanted. So I decided to take a step back into working more directly in the fitness side of it itself and getting back into the personal training. So I set up a little studio initially, just in the back of the garage in the house I had with my then wife. But then when we separated, I had to look for something else to do. So I set up the first version of what would then become this place.
Nice. It looks like we've got some. Are we back?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I think my internet a little bit today. Okay, cool. So the last bit I got is you kind of separated and you had to find your own place. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So we ended up opening one club in Buxton, which was a nearby town to here, and then we very shortly afterwards opened up this club. So I had two clubs initially, but the first one didn't work out all that great. But then shut that down, kept this one going, and one's been here for 10 years now.
So tell us a little bit about the success of this club that you're in now, so we can kind of build this picture, so we can then dive into the automations and systems.
Yeah, so I think at the time, so when we opened up in 2012, it was a relatively new concept, group personal training. I was aware of a club in Sheffield called Prime Mover, which is still there, that ran a similar sort of concept to what we do. But outside of that, I wasn't really aware of many places running this kind of model. So I think initially, for a lot of people, when they weren't used to this kind of, group personal training model, initially there was a little bit of resistance to the price, particularly. I think people just thought it was a gym and therefore an expensive gym. But over those first few years, as people got to the realization that it was something different and actually it was fantastic value compared to the same level of support on a one-to-one personal training basis, we kind of got over that initial hurdle, shall we say, and it's been relatively plain sailing since then. We got up to kind of the numbers we need to do after about 18 months, and apart from little dips in the 3 lockdowns we had, we've been give or take there for the last 8 years or so.
Nice. And how did you manage to combat lockdowns and come through thriving again?
So we've always had a relatively high level of online support and kind of systems in place. So we were never somewhere where people just came to exercise. There was always the Facebook community, the app, a lot of systems built into that to support people, a lot of communication outside of the session. So I think for us, it was less of a transition than it was for many places. I think if you've only ever offered an in-person service, a lot of those places were essentially shut down on that Friday in March 2 years ago, and then almost had to scramble to launch something online. So for us, we always had that online systems in place, and we started streaming the sessions live online from about 2 weeks before that lockdown, because it looked like that's kind of where everything was going. So it felt like a relatively smooth transition. A number of members kind of afterwards commented that looking back, they didn't notice how it changed. It was, we were in club and then we were online, but it was never a big deal almost. So obviously some members did cancel, particularly the newer joiners. If you had a joiner that only joined at the start of March, nearly all of them cancelled straight away, which I completely understand. I'd have done the same in the same situation. But the longer term members that we had a relationship with us, who were getting results, the majority of them stayed on. And I think for a lot of them as well, it was invaluable for them. It wasn't just them supporting us. It was us supporting them, and we really leveled up kind of what we did at that time. So we put in initially daily socials. We had a social every single day online. We dropped that down to 3 days a week after a month or two. Just put extra things in place, I think, to support people more, and I think they benefited from that even more at that obviously challenging time.
Nice. Okay, so let's dive into systems and automations then. If a brand new FitPro or somebody you've never really heard of the terms systems and automations before, just really briefly, what is by the meaning of systems and automations?
There's a great phrase that I really like, and it's about systemizing the predictable so you can do more of the exceptional. I think things like systemization and automation often get a bad rep, and I hear other people say about, I want to keep that personal touch. And for me, actually, the systems and the automation are to enable me to do more of the personal touch. So if I can find a way to do something in 10 minutes that might otherwise have taken an hour, that's 50 minutes freed up to do something a lot more personal, something that only I can do. If I can find a way to have something happen essentially automatically, but would happen in exactly the same way if I did it manually, again, that's freeing up time and focus and mental energy I can put into something that, again, only I can do personally.
Yeah, that like, there's going to be a massive difference, really, like you say, because even if it's just a birthday reminder to you of all the clients, that saved you having to search for their birthday. You get reminders and you can personally get in contact with them. So, like, it's a great phrase, that. So, if we're looking at systems automations then, and someone's like, wow, I could literally automate almost anything, where does somebody kind of start? What would be one of the first couple of things you should really consider when it comes to building a system or automation?
I think you need to get clear on what the process is yourself. I think every process I've ever systemized or automated, I started off doing it very manually and got clear on what I wanted to happen, what the outcome is, what the member needs to receive, what needs to happen. And I kind of made it so that thing was happening. And then bit by bit looked at how can I make that easier or more systemized or more automated, even just as simple as having like a written standard way of doing it. So there's a lot of tasks I do on a weekly basis, even though I kind of know how to do them. My project management software that I use just sends me the details of how to do it. So I can just bang through it in half the time that I would do if I was sitting down fresh. Within that as well, a lot of just batching of activities. If the stuff that I'm going to do that is involving manual effort, if I can do 10 of those things all at the same time, that's going to take less overall time than it is doing them on 10 separate days. There's less setup, there's less just extra wasted time, getting in the mood for it, getting your ideas ready, getting in place to do that thing. If I can do all 10 in one go. So this morning, for example, I've filmed all of the next week's videos for the page and for the members only group. They're currently uploading via a different phone. And then when I go on later, I'll edit the captions on them all. And then I've got an automation so that when I press a button, it automatically schedules them. I could just go on my phone every single day, have to decide on a video, get out my tripod, my lighting rig, film it, caption it, put it on social media channels. It would take 3 times as long, but it'd be the exact same thing for the end user. The person watching the video on Facebook doesn't know if I've spent an hour on it or 20 minutes, and me spending 20 minutes on it, again, frees up 40 minutes where I can do something again that really my presence adds value to.
Nice. Okay. So if like you're saying, like we need to try and figure out the ones that we want to do, but what should some of the things that we consider, like maybe I'm coming into this and I'm really unsure, I've got all these great ideas, what should be 1 or 2 of the things that we really should consider initially to start with?
In terms of like systemizing and automating, I think it's the stuff that's relatively straightforward. So if I've got something that I'm doing on a computer that just involves copying and pasting and dragging stuff around, if a new member comes on board and I'm having to manually set them up on my WordPress website and manually add them onto my email autoresponder and then manually send them out a certain message, straight away there's going to be a way that you can get that a bit more systemized and automated. Again, the member receives exactly the same thing. They're not down on the deal. They're getting the exact same videos, the exact same access and everything like that. But again, if it just takes me less time and effort, it makes sense. I don't think it's that really standardized stuff where it's the same for everyone. If I'm setting up a new member on the website in exactly the same way for every person that ever joins, then that's a really standard process that there's probably some sort of systemized or automated way to do.
Nice. Okay, so if we then look at, we've got all these great ideas, where can we like map out the system or automation that we want to build? Do you use a specific software, or do you just have a pen and paper and you kind of just draw the diagrams of how you want it to look?
The way I do it, I just go on to Zapier, because most of my kind of automations are done through Zapier, and I just start playing. I treat it a little bit like a jigsaw. I kind of figure that there's probably a way to do this thing. I'm not quite sure how it's going to happen. And I just go on there and almost start playing. I think, right, okay, well, I need this integration with my WordPress website or with my texting software. I'll set it up and I'll try and make it work. If it doesn't work, I'll try and think what extra step could I add in the middle to make it work. Some people might prefer mapping it out on paper before they start, or using some sort of, I don't know, flowchart software. But for me, it's just going in there and like I said, treating it like a jigsaw, thinking the pieces are all here. I just need to figure out how to arrange them in the right way to make this work.
Nice. Nice. Okay. So we're talking about Zapier. That's kind of one piece of software, but you've mentioned autoresponders, you mentioned text messaging, you've mentioned planning your social media and scheduling your social media. What type of tools connect with Zapier to do those kind of extra bits that we're talking about now?
Zapier seems to connect with everything. A couple of times I've looked to see if I can change my Zapier subscription for a cheaper alternative, but the ones I look at either don't have certain integrations or perhaps don't quite work in the way that I'd like them to. Whereas Zapier, I don't think there's a bit of software out there that can be integrated that Zapier doesn't then integrate with.
Nice. Okay. So what are we using for your text messaging software? What tool is used for that?
I use ClickSend. I've used different ones in the past, but I ended up shifting to ClickSend just because it's a little bit cheaper. It's 2.9 pence per text message rather than 4.1 pence like some of the other ones are. And when you send however many hundreds, if not into the thousands of messages per month, sometimes even just saving a penny and a half per text message quickly adds up.
Yeah. So in what cases would somebody want to be sending out automated text messages? What are the kind of some of the scenarios we'd use for this?
So ones that I send personally, so when someone first submits their details to find out more about what we do, so whether they've filled in a lead pages ad or whether they've a lead ad on Facebook or whether they've filled in one of my application forms, then rather than me kind of receiving it on email and having to get around to texting them later, they receive a standard format text, which I then follow up with a manual one. The texting software also texts me essentially from their number, so that all I have to do is hit reply with a manual text. They then get reminder messages about the various calls that we've got booked in. So if I've got them booked in for like a call to find out about what we do, if they're an existing member who I'm booked in for a coaching call with, then I've got an automation set up so they get a reminder text 24 hours, 4 hours and 15 minutes before the call. When someone first joins and I'm in the process of setting them up, they get a text message to say, we've got all your details, we're getting you set up. And then they get another one shortly afterwards when they've been set up and they've received their login details. They get a birthday text message. Again, these are all messages that I could sit and manually type out on my phone, but no one benefits from that because me sitting out and manually typing all those text messages, the member still receives the exact same text message and it takes me 10 times as long, and no one benefits from that.
No, that's good. What I think is good though is people are kind of seeing the different possibilities to it, because like most people would think, I need to send a text message when somebody's booked a consultation, but like you're saying, you're sending birthday text messages and a couple of follow-up reminder text messages, and when they've signed up to the program, they get a text message. It's good to kind of see the scope of the possibility of some of the things that maybe others hadn't thought of. And you've mentioned email responders. Now, we know Zapier can send emails out for you, but what kind of software system are you using to send out these email follow-up or responders?
I'm currently using MailChimp. So for many years, I think we started out using Aweber, and then I shifted to Constant Contact, and I actually only shifted over to MailChimp about a year and a half ago because I realized that it had a really good integration with Zapier. So there was still a manual step in before with what I was doing, whereas the Zapier to MailChimp integration means that it can schedule and publish the email directly to a specific list without any kind of manual steps in the middle. And for me, the removal of manual steps is actually making it happen as well. There's all these things that I could do manually, but I know that I'd end up messing it up, or I'd forget to do it, or it wouldn't happen because something else more important came along. So almost the least manual steps and the more kind of systemized and automated those really standard processes are, not only does it save me time, I can use more value somewhere else, but it just means it gets done consistently. Members get the stuff that they need 100% of the time. It's not left for me to remember to do something or to find some time to do it.
I think that is definitely a big one. Like you say, reoccurring tasks that maybe you say, oh, I'll get on with it later, and you forget because you just get so busy that it just does happen automatically. So have you ever had a point where the automation has gone wrong?
Well, yeah, I mean, not massively wrong. So Zapier does send you an error message if the Zap doesn't go as planned. And sometimes that's just a manual error in some part of the entry. So the members entered their email address wrong, so it doesn't work or what have you. Sometimes I realize that the way I've set the Zap up whilst it works in the majority of cases, perhaps might not work for some little variation, but then that's an opportunity to go in and put something in place so it does work for all possible variations. And I do have a manual reminder each week. I just go in and just double check that everything's been working and everything's been going out as it should be. But again, even if 1% of my automations went wrong, the 99% that are going right would mean, again, that members were getting consistently more of what they need and want than they would do if I was doing everything manually along the way.
Nice. So you haven't had any awkward situation where you've actually sent the wrong text message or email to the wrong client or prospect by mistake?
I don't think so. Yeah, nothing drastically that I can think of. No, if anything, it's the odd occasion where they haven't got it because, again, there's been some thing in the way I set the Zap up that didn't take into account a particular thing. I think no one's got the wrong thing. I think they've just not got the thing that they should have got.
Nice. Okay. So I know you say you go in weekly and you've managed to connect all of these things up. If someone's now really interested in setting this type of stuff up, how long does it usually take somebody to set up a very simple automation compared to a very complex automation, or is it hard to give a kind of length?
It completely depend on kind of what it needed to do, how many steps were involved, how familiar they were with such things. I mean, I could probably set up a relatively complicated Zap relatively easy now, not just because I know how to use Zapier, but I've got a good understanding of how I can build these things out. So like one of the things that a lot of my Zaps do is they'll use hidden Google Sheets. So it'll stick some information into a Google Sheet that'll format it and do what I need it to do. And then Zapier will then pick out the right information and do something with. And now I know that's a way of doing it that I'm quite familiar with. I could knock something up that would work in a relatively short amount of time, but it might take someone else a bit longer, or they might not even be able to figure out how to do that. But then, the most basic automation you could do, you could probably do in a handful of minutes for most people.
Okay. So if we're looking at some of these more complex ones, or even some of the real basic ones, and I know you've been saying you've been doing this for some time now and you can get it done quite quick. Where does somebody go to learn this stuff? Did you sign up to a course, or is it just YouTube, or is it just some research?
Just playing with it really more than anything. Again, just I think I've had Zapier for several years, and to start with, it was just doing relatively few things, and then I kind of really realized a few years ago that I was spending far more time on certain things than perhaps I should or needed to. And that was when I really started to look more into how I could make these things happen. So I mean, if someone can get something set up straight away, there's probably way more advanced stuff on there that I have even thought of. But I think everyone could get some sort of automation and system set up relatively quickly just by probably going on there and having a bit of a play. And I'm sure there's actually plenty of support on both Zapier and any other similar setup that I haven't looked into.
Nice. Okay. So we've looked at setting automations up that text client sites, their birthday, sending their login details to your WordPress membership site. And we've got people who have their follow-up automations when they've got an appointment booked, and all this great stuff that's saving you time, but also giving you more time to give back to your clients. But is there anything that you think I can't automate? Or a few things that you think we just shouldn't automate this process?
Yeah, I think, as I said, to me, it's freeing up time to do the stuff that only I can do. So I do a blog every day and have done for 10 years. I do a video on the page and a video in the group every day. And that's me. That's my words. That's me speaking to the camera. And that's the kind of stuff I want to have more time to be able to do, and to have phone calls with my clients and to have face-to-face interactions with them. So I want to free up as much time as I can to do that by, again, systemizing and automating that predictable, that almost mundane stuff that's kind of the same every day, the same for everyone. That's the stuff that, to me, you systemize and automate. The stuff that is just you, is your coaching, your skills, the stuff that only really you can bring to the table. That's what those things free up more time and energy and focus for as well. It's not just the amount of time. I know if I spend half of my day manually uploading my blogs to WordPress and then doing all the video edits by hand, not only will I have less time, but I'll just have less inclination and energy and enthusiasm for that in-person coaching and for doing everything else, again, that only I can really bring to the table.
Nice. Okay. So I've asked a number of questions on automations and softwares and different types of stuff like that. Is there any questions you think maybe I haven't asked that we should have been talking about?
Not necessarily. I think the key is, if someone wants to look into this kind of thing, is look at what you're doing now. You can take a time log. You can just literally jot down every 15 minutes across the course of a week what you're doing, and have a look at the end of the week. I do this with members as well. Members who perhaps feel they don't have enough time to exercise and make some better food choices. I look at how they are currently assigning that finite resource of time. We as FitPros can do the same, and it's often really eye-opening. Even now, when I do it periodically, you look at it and you go, wow, I didn't realize I was spending that much time on that particular thing. There's got to be a better way of doing that, whether I batch it and do it once a week rather than doing 20 minutes every day. If I just do 2 hours on a Monday, if I systemize it, I automate it, there's got to be a better way of doing that. So again, I can free up that time and everything else for the good stuff.
Nice. Okay. So for anybody interested to learn kind of maybe about some of the automation, some of the systems that you built, where could somebody maybe come and have a chat or learn a little bit more about what it is you've kind of been doing with this stuff?
Feel free to add me on Facebook. I'm just down as Jon with no H, so Jon Hall, Hall. Add me on Facebook. I'm always happy to chat with people. I'm actually having a chat later today with a guy that used to take sessions here. He ended up moving to London. He's actually moving back up to near the area here, and he wants to set up his own place, kind of not in this town, but nearby. So I'm having a chat with him later. I'm always happy to share a bit of best practice. If someone's not essentially direct competition, then me telling them ideas I've got or running things past each other is always good.
Nice. Jon, I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on. Hopefully next time we can dive into the systems and automations at a little bit of a deeper level, so those who have already started doing this can learn a little bit more about some of the amazing stuff that you're doing for your own gym.
Amazing. Awesome. Good to speak to you.
Appreciate it, Jon. Thank you for coming on. We'll speak to you soon.